Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Sapkal here. Let us discuss about the topic antihypertensive and preeclampsia. Few lines about taking the blood pressure. Here first, blood pressure is taken in the left lateral position or sitting position after 10 minutes of rest on right arm at the level of right atrium. The cuff side should be for 5 inches for a normal female and 8 inches size is preferred for obese lady. Blood pressure is recorded as systolic 1 with the Korsakoff's phase sound 1 and absent of sound or Korsakoff phase 5 sound indicates diastolic blood pressure. Mean arterial pressure is the systolic blood pressure plus diastolic blood pressure divided by 3. It is usually 105, less than 105. Peak blood pressure is documented usually in the morning hours 6 to 8 am and least blood pressure is documented in the afternoon usually at the time of 2 to 4 pm. What is the definition of pregnancy induced hypertension? Blood pressure more than 140 by 90 on 2 occasions taken 4 hours apart. The hypertension disappears 3 months after delivery. PIH is of two types, preeclampsia and gestational hypertension. Preeclampsia can be graded as mild preeclampsia and severe preeclampsia. In mild preeclampsia, there is no end organ damage, and in severe preeclampsia, there is end organ damage. Mild terminology is not used because there is a rapid change of mild to severe variety due to end organ damage. Recently, albuminuria, oliguria, and IUGR are removed to predict the severity of preeclampsia as mild or severe. What do you understand by eclampsia then? It is preeclampsia associated with grand mal epilepsy. Gestational hypertension is a condition where there is only hypertension. There is no end organ damage, no albuminuria. It manifests after 20 weeks and disappears 3 months after delivery. Chronic hypertension, here a hypertensive lady is pregnant. So she has got hypertension with or without pregnancy. This gestational hypertension can progress to severe preeclampsia with end organ damage, and this chronic hypertension can get superimposed by preeclampsia in 25% of cases. This is very important thing. It progresses within few days, within few weeks, 1 to 2 weeks usually. Evidence of preeclampsia and severity of the disease in chronic hypertension is explained by 4 points. One is uncontrolled blood pressure, fresh onset albuminuria, signs symptoms of end organ damage, and signs symptoms of uteroplacental dysfunction. Previously, rise of systolic blood pressure by 13, diastolic blood pressure was 15, was considered as blood pressure criteria. Now it is removed. IUGR is not included in preeclampsia as a criteria to predict the severity because in cases of hypertension, IUGR is seen at earlier gestation itself without preeclampsia. The pathophysiology of preeclampsia is to be understood a little bit. Here, in preeclampsia, extravenous trophoblastic cells, the invasion is incomplete. They invade only up to the decidual segment of spiral arterioles and not up to the myometrial segment. So there is no dilatation and tortuosity of this spiral arterioles. There is less blood flow through the spiral arterioles in the placental bed and leads to placental ischemia. Simultaneously, there is release of inflammatory mediators and vasoactive substances which are responsible for hypertension and end organ damage. How do you understand that there is progressive disease in the form of end organ damage? Hallmark of renal lesion in preeclampsia is glomerular endotheliosis. It is due to vasospasm. Due to less or decreased GFR, glomerular filtration rate, there is less creatinine clearance and increased levels of urea, serum urea, and uric acid levels also. Blood urea in pregnancy is cutoff value is 25 milligram percent in pregnant woman. Non-pregnant it is 40 milligram. And uric acid levels are 5 milligram. With 5 milligram level, there is a risk of neonatal morbidity and mortality is also more. Raised serum creatinine cutoff value is more than 1.1 or even 1.5. Proteinuria is considered as significant when it is 1 plus on dipstick or 30 milligram per dl or more than 300 milligram in 24 hours. Along, if there is a proteinuria, there is a risk of IUGR. It is not an indication for termination of pregnancy. Weekly proteinuria is estimated in gestational hypertension cases to predict the possibility of development of preeclampsia. The specific marker of preeclampsia is protein creatinine ratio more than 0.3. This is very important point to remember. Less urine output in 24 hours, less than 400 ml, indicates poor prognosis in preeclampsia cases. There are also chances of pulmonary edema with SpO2 less than 94%. It indicates progressive disease. Raised uric acid levels are due to placental ischemia and increased trophoblast turnover and production of purines. Raised uric acid levels indicate renal tubular dysfunction. It is specific for preeclampsia. And remember, uric acid is not raised in cases of chronic hypertension. We have learned uric acid more than 5 milligram indicates poor neonatal outcome. As regards the renal failure, it is a rare entity in preeclampsia. Preeclampsia can cause acute tubular necrosis and usually it is reversible. Acute irreversible glomerular failure is due to acute hemorrhage in cases of preeclampsia, either in the form of abruptio placenta, PPH, or HELLP syndrome. Severity of the disease. When it is there, then the patient may complain of epigastric pain. It is due to stretching of the Gleason capsule of the liver. The severe form of disease, liver disease, is HELLP syndrome in cases of preeclampsia, characterized by hemolysis, elevated liver enzyme, and low platelet count. Mortality is 1% and recurrence is too much, 25% with the next pregnancy. The most specific marker of this HELLP syndrome is low serum haptoglobin levels. Elevated liver enzymes, SGOT, SGPT more than 40 IU or LDH more than 600 are seen along with HELLP syndrome. Raised LDH level indicates hemolysis and other markers or hemolysis are elevated serum bilirubin levels and peripheral smear will show Burr cells, fragmented red cells, schistocytes and helmet cells. Low platelet count less than 1.5 lakh indicates thrombocytopenia. It is the most common hematological feature in preeclampsia. When the normal coagulation parameters are there, then they are there in cases of this when platelet count is normal. When platelet count is less than 1.5 lakh, then that time these parameters are done as prothrombin time and partial thrombin time. These parameters are estimated also along with raised liver enzymes and patients of abruptio placenta. New onset cerebral symptoms may be seen in cases of severe preeclampsia, and there patient can have frontal headache. It is due to hyperperfusion and cerebral edema. Most common visual symptom in preeclampsia is scotoma. Most common retinal examination is increased AV ratio and segmental vasospasm in cases of preeclampsia. Tendon reflexes are brisk or like knee jerk, or even there may be ankle clonus. It indicates impending eclampsia in these cases. New onset visual disturbances may be in the form of scotoma, flashing of light, blurring of vision. Initially, on the retina changes, there is macular edema, and then there are cottonwood wool exudates on fundoscopy examinations. Blindness may be there in cases of severe preeclampsia. It is due to three reasons. Occipital cortex edema, it is known as amaurosis, or retinal infarction, it is known as Purchase retinopathy. Retinal detachment is usually there. It is unilateral and partial, and automatically it reverts back to normal after delivery of the placenta. Expectant management in preeclampsia is given with the aim to avoid preterm birth and to increase the birth weight and gestational age of the fetus. Median time to prolong the pregnancy by with this expectant treatment is by 7 days. Antihypertensives are given in these cases, and the target blood pressure in these cases is 130 by 85, and target mean arterial pressure should be less than 126. If there is further reduction in blood pressure, what is the risk? Risk of FGR, fetal growth restriction. First drug of choice is labetalol. Methyl-dopa also can be used, and nifedipine also is used. But remember, first drug of choice is labetalol when it is used as oral. Even for IV treatment, labetalol is the first drug. For lung maturity, betamethasone supplementation is required. It is not given after 35 weeks of pregnancy. Neuroprotection and for prevention of fits, magnesium sulfate is the drug of choice. What is the role of antihypertensives? Antihypertensives do not change the disease process in preeclampsia. No improvement in the neonatal outcome like preterm birth, FGR, and NICU care. What is the purpose of use of this antihypertensive then? They are used to prevent the severe hypertension or intracranial hemorrhage or left ventricular failure, and to reduce the complications also like pulmonary edema, accidental hemorrhage. However, they mask the severity of the disease also. Oral antihypertensives are used when the blood pressure is more than 150 by 100, and according to NICE guidelines when the blood pressure is more than 140 by 90. IV bolus preparations are given when blood pressure is more than 160 by 110 diastolic. Antihypertensives are very important in preeclampsia because hypertensive disorders they cause 16% of maternal deaths, and most common cause of death in preeclampsia and eclampsia is intracranial hemorrhage, which is preventable with the use of antihypertensive drugs. Drugs, what are the different drugs? Alpha methyl dopa, labetalol, hydralazine, nifedipine, sodium nitroprusside, and atenolol. Among them, this alpha methyl dopa is centrally acting alpha receptor stimulant, and other drug here of the same type is clonidine. The dose is 0.1 to 0.6 milligram TDS. Labetalol is usually the drug of choice. It causes bradycardia, and next drug of choice is hydralazine, which causes tachycardia. These two drugs, labetalol and hydralazine, they are preferred in cases of severe preeclampsia as an antihypertensive for intravenous infusion purpose. Hydralazine causes direct arterial vasodilator and it reduces the mean arterial pressure to the extent of less than 126. Nifedipine oral preparation is used. It is a calcium channel blocker. With the use of sodium nitroprusside, there is a risk of sudden hypotension. Labetalol causes bronchospasm. The dose is 100 mg TDS. This side effect is bronchospasm. The dose is 100 mg TDS. Maximum can be 1.2 gram per day. Alpha methyl dopa, there is a risk of depression. Not used in the puerperal cases, postpartum cases. The dose is 250 mg TDS. Maximum is 4 gram per day. Hydralazine and nifedipine, the dose is 10 mg TDS. Maximum is 200 mg for hydralazine and maximum dose of nifedipine is 120 mg per day. The other drugs are sodium nitroprusside, we have learned, and atenolol. The dose of atenolol oral preparation is 50 to 100 mg per day. Then what are the drugs which are used in hypertensive crisis? First drug of choice is labetalol and second drug is hydralazine. If there is cerebral edema, then additional IV mannitol is required or IV furosemide is required. The dose is 40 mg. Along with this IV infusion of antihypertensives, intensive monitoring is required. It may be in the form of invasive hemodynamic monitoring. Other complications also required intensive monitoring. They are pulmonary edema, renal failure. The doses for hypertensive crisis when the blood pressure is more than 170 by 120 diastolic. Labetalol bolus dose is 20 mg and wait for 10 minutes. Then give again 20 mg, 40 mg, 80 mg after waiting for 10 minutes in between because it is effective within 10 minutes. It takes 10 minutes to act. Maximum dose can be 220 mg per day. Hydralazine, the injectable is given 10 mg IV and increase 10 mg every 20 minutes. Should not be given more than 2 days. Methyl dopa oral dose we have discussed 250 mg TDS, maximum 4 grams. Nifedipine 10 mg every 30 minutes, maximum 50 mg in 1 hour. Don't increase the dose above this. Sodium nitroprusside we have learned. Other drugs are diazoxide and nitroglycerin. Diazoxide is a diuretic, hence it is avoided in pregnancy. Only indication for use of diuretics in preeclampsia is pulmonary edema, cerebral edema. Otherwise, diuretics are avoided in pregnancy. There should be careful replacement of the fluids in cases of preeclampsia. It should be 80 ml per hour or 1 ml per kg per hour. Because there are three problems in preeclampsia. One is hemoconcentration, second is increased extracellular volume, and the third is increased capillary permeability. Hence, because of three reasons, intensive monitoring is also required because with the pulse oximetry. Avoid excess of fluid overload. In preeclampsia, there is a risk of pulmonary edema. Antihypertensives that are absolutely contraindicated in preeclampsia are diuretics, beta blocker, ARBs, and ACE inhibitors. They are captopril and enalapril. ACE inhibitors, they cause renal agenesis when used in second trimester and renal dysplasia, oligoamnias, IUGR. IUGR is very severe in these cases and oligoamnias is also severe, which leads to pulmonary hypoplasia and limb contracture defects in the fetus. There is a risk of RDS, hypotension in the newborn, and death or patent ductus arteriosus is also documented with these ACE inhibitors. Hence, they are absolutely contraindicated in pregnancy. What is the definitive management of preeclampsia? is the termination of pregnancy. If it is a severe preeclampsia, terminate the pregnancy at 34 weeks. If it is mild, the pregnancy is pushed till 37 weeks of pregnancy after careful monitoring. Vaginal delivery is expected in all, provided cervix and pelvis is favorable. If the cervix is unripe, then prostaglandins PGE2 alpha E2 is safe. For prevention of PPH, avoid prostaglandins, but for treatment of PPH, misoprost can be used. Epidural analgesia is preferred during LSCS operation. Pregnancy is terminated irrespective of period of gestation in following cases like when there is uncontrolled hypertension and development of eclampsia and HELLP syndrome, or when there is risk to the fetus due to accidental hemorrhage, raised uric acid levels, and IUGR and fetal distress are the indications for termination of pregnancy. Extreme preterm baby or before viability, also termination of the pregnancy is the treatment of choice. Postpartum monitoring is important in all cases because there is risk of HELLP syndrome in the postpartum period and risk of pulmonary edema, oliguria is also seen. The risk of HELLP syndrome is 30% and it develops suddenly. Stepwise reduction in the antihypertensive dose is done in the postnatal period. Avoid use of methyl dopa in postnatal period because there is risk of depression. If there is hypertension is persistent in the postnatal period 3 months after delivery, then the diagnosis is chronic hypertension. And if proteinuria persists, refer the patient to the nephrologist for subsequent management. Magnesium sulfate use is continued for 24 hours in the postnatal period and thromboprophylaxis is required, especially in LSCS cases. What are the factors which prevent eclampsia? This slide is very important from MCQ point of view. Regular exercises, calcium supplementation and use of aspirin or aspirin plus heparin is helpful to prevent the preeclampsia. If there is hyperchromocysteinemia, then folic acid supplementation is also helpful. But remember, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, antioxidants, less salt intake, and only heparin use do not prevent preeclampsia. Little few sentences about aspirin tablet because it is kept for practical examination. You should know few lines. Aspirin is an antithrombotic drug. It is effective in low dose. It inhibits synthesis of cyclooxygenase, which is necessary for synthesis of prostacyclin. Thus, it reduces the thromboxane A2 production and it normalizes the balance of thromboxane and prostacyclin synthesis. The dose is 100 milligram started from 12 weeks onwards, given up to 28 weeks or 30 weeks. There is 60% less risk of IUGR and preeclampsia with the use of aspirin in the pregnancy. It is indicated on all high-risk patients for preeclampsia. For spinal anesthesia, aspirin is not a contraindication. It can be given. Early predictors of preeclampsia. The best predictor is uterine artery Doppler at 24 weeks, where there is evidence of bilateral notch. It has got 80% positive predictive value. Giant rollover test is done at 28 weeks when you turn the patient from left lateral position to the supine position. There should be fall of blood pressure, but in these cases of risk of preeclampsia, there is a rise of diastolic blood pressure by 20 millimeters of mercury. But the problem of this test is high false positive rate is there. Decreased levels of this placental growth factor and prostacyclins. They are the early predictors of preeclampsia, and increased level of thromboxane A2, inhibin A, HCG levels at 20 weeks are the predictors of preeclampsia, and of course, estimation of tyrokinase. Uric acid, hemoconcentration, and edema. These three factors. They are not the predictors of preeclampsia. ACOG recommends maternal risk factor and mean arterial pressure estimation and mean uterine artery PI estimation as a predictors of preeclampsia. So what are the maternal risk factors? There are plenty, but all of them you should remember from MCQ point of view. Edema, monozygous twins, 60% risk. Family history of preeclampsia, if mother, more risk, 25%. If sibling, more risk, 40%. And past history of preeclampsia, 15% with past history of mild preeclampsia and severe preeclampsia, 25%. Age above 40 years, it is not 35, it is 40 years. So extremes of age above 40 and less than 20. Priming gravida, it is 15 times more common, and patients with BMI more than 35 kg per meter square, 13% is the risk. Hypertensive lady, Rh negative mother, metabolic X syndrome, APS patients, renal disease, thrombophilia, and connective tissue disorders, there is more risk of preeclampsia. In cases of diabetes, there is double risk. New paternity, limited sperm exposure are also the risk factors. Factors which protect the preeclampsia, these things also you must know. They are 3: smoking, placenta previa cases, and regular exercise in pregnancy prevents the preeclampsia. Thanks for watching the video.